Hi, I'm Charm. I have obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and I have tried to film this particular TikTok now 4 times, but 5th time's a charm, so let's get through this while I discuss a, shall we say, not so discussed aspect of OCPD. So if y'all don't know, obsessive compulsive personality disorder is going to be a cluster C personality disorder that I have, and I seldom see spoken about really on any social media platform. And so I've taken it upon myself to share what it's like for me living with this, in hopes that we fellow OCPD having people can find each other and find solidarity, community, and discuss what's going on, and maybe for people that are in our lives to better gain some perspective. So if you don't know, it's going to be a cluster C personality disorder that is really constituted by an obsessive need for control, but also perfection, productivity, and order. It's constituted by, I'd say, rigidity and stubbornness. And that's my one sentence synopsis. But there are many, many other aspects of it that are going to come into play with what I'm discussing today, which is how, in my experience, it is kind of a shared trait that those of us that have OCPD tend to stew about things. So we generally have a very, very black and white sense of morality, and are generally, the disorder is egocentric. So we generally believe in that the way that we're doing things, the way that we are processing information in the world is the correct way to do things. And speaking from personal experience, when I am slighted or when something is done improperly, like I notice, whether it could be someone doing a bad job on something, it could be a friend of mine saying something that reveals maybe a little bit about their politic that I disagree with. It could be someone, really doing something to get under my skin. It could also be directed at myself if I think about failures that I've had in the past, personal projects that I did not fulfill to the standard that I wanted. Any of these scenarios, and many, many more, are things that I do not let go of. And it is not something that I say to be proud. It's just I do have an inability of letting go of interactions or like infractions of a certain caliber. And my friend Morgan pointed this out to me and called it stewing when we were still in high school, because it could be a year later, it could be 6 months after an interaction that I'd had with a classmate or a teacher, and who had since moved on and didn't even remember anything. And it's not only that I remembered it, but was actively recalling it as if it had happened the day prior. And that's something that still is true to this day. I say that for me, my brain, as much as it exists on the sliding scale and exists in the gray area, it's a lot of switches. So when one switch is flipped and all of a sudden, oh, well, that person said that, and if it's like something really, really off politically that I just view as reprehensible, there's not only the switch flipped, all warmth is drained. And my friends have seen it. They've seen me go from a very, very warm to a very cold person quickly. But I always like to use the visual, the metaphor. It's like the warmth that leaves me, it then goes to fuel the fire underneath this pot of stew that I just never really let up. There are scenarios, I will say this, I am capable of forgiveness. That is not what I'm not saying that people with OCPD cannot forgive. Forgiveness, as we all know, is a choice, and it's something you work on, and it's not to say that I'm good at it. I've had many scenarios in my life where I've had to forgive people. For me, I've noticed the through line being that my willingness to choose to forgive someone comes from a place of respect, and ultimately respecting or admiring them, and them somehow meeting my high standards, even if it's me recognizing shortcomings in certain areas. So that's forgiveness. More often what happens is, generally speaking, most people, if they cross that line with me, which is rather far, the warmth is never regained. There are scenarios where, because I know that it is the socially correct thing to do, and it is going to get me my brownie points socially, and otherwise it would be a bad look and would make people maybe scared of me or think that I'm a raging bitch or something. I know that I need to give the appearance of moving on so I can, what I say, feign formality with people if it's going to serve the social ecosystem best, and if it's going to serve my peace ultimately best, for me to act as if things are fine. But there is never any forgetting of what happened, and beyond never forgetting, it is just this ever-present stewing. I put the stews aside to be productive. You know, I always joke, like Reese Witherspoon on Big Little Lies, I tend to my grudges like little pets. It is true that I put things aside, but if I'm on a particularly bad one that day, I can sit and get lost in my thoughts and really, really stew, and had to make the choice to stop. That happened a long time ago. That's as succinctly and eloquently as I can explain it. Again, I do not see this discussed as much, so thank you for sticking around for my stewing and spewing of word vomit at you. If you have OCPD, I would love to know if you also experience this, like this, if this helped for anyone that viewed so that it helps the algorithm, and I will see you in the next TikToks.